It's episode 327 on December 13th, 2021 on Canadian Patriot Podcast. This is John MacDonald with music and the truth until dawn. Right now I've got a few words for some of our brothers and sisters in the occupied zone. The chair is against the wall. John has a long mustache. It's 9 o'clock Canadian, another day closer to victory, and for all of you out there on or behind the line, this is your song.
And we'd love your feedback about the show. So please visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com/feedback or email us at feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. A version of the show is available on Stitcher and iTunes.
We need your help to support the Canadian Patriot Podcast. Visit patreon.com/CPP and become a Patreon. You can get a better quality version of the show for just $1 per episode. And show you're not a communist and support my tax shelter by buying a CPP t-shirt for just $24.99 plus shipping and government mandated theft. Visit CanadianPatriotPodcast.com homepage and follow the link on the right. I fucking did it this time.
I'm very proud of you. Well, I guess that's back to me then.
Yeah.
I should pay more attention and stop swigging my beer here. What are we drinking? We'll go anti-clockwise, and I'll start with Gavin. Gavin, what are you drinking?
Once again, this week I am drinking some Crown Royal Northern Harvest Rye and Diet Pepsi.
All right. Pierre, what are you drinking?
40 Creek. I drank all the brandy before the next episode. Come back to 40 Creek.
That will happen.
That's fair. I have something new to trigger listeners and co-hosts with. From Highlander, brewed in the north, a smoked porter, roasted coffee and chocolate notes. All right.
So
well, we'll keep going then. Built for Ontario's rugged north, this brew keeps you warm and tasty no matter the weather. Darker malts are slowly toasted in beechwood to deliver a silky, long finish with no bitter aftertaste. Brawny and full-bodied, yet mellow and smooth. Notes of roasted chocolate and coffee.
So instead of, like, you know how sometimes people are like, drink coffee, it'll help get you out of the drunk stage so you can like get out of the bar and not fall on your face. So does this like keep you at the right buzz because there's coffee in it?
No. Common misconception. Caffeine does not reduce inebriation. Water. You need to get more hydrated because you're probably dehydrated. If you add water, you can reduce your blood alcohol because you can produce more blood. Because your body recycles all that stuff. Add water, not
But
coffee.
I saw the coffee thing on the I saw the coffee thing on the internet. The internet doesn't lie.
The internet may occasionally not be entirely truthful. This does taste freaking delicious, though.
Well,
Yeah?
Well,
Yeah,
do you want
notes of coffee and chocolate. It's a porter.
Like,
it's good.
I'd probably take a sip. I don't know if I'd drink a whole beer. I'd probably take a sip just to say like I had some.
I would drink the shit out of that. That sounds delicious. And chocolate and cranberry goes together.
Yeah, I'm just
This
like
is
I'm
chocolate
very
and coffee,
picky.
but okay.
Well, but like the stout has
No,
that chocolate flavor though.
Yeah, no, but if you're reading the
At least
show
to me,
notes,
it
that's
always
last
does,
week's
yeah.
show notes. That's last week's show
Oh, yeah,
notes.
last week's
That's not
show
the
notes.
Oh well.
Yeah, I know. I got all fucked up. I'm reading it as he's saying it. And I was like, well, that's not right. But
Well, there you go.
Yeah,
Well, I do recall
yeah.
you saying something about Highlander and triggering. So I do have something Highlander related that is triggering.
There can only be one.
Well, yes, but so that movie, they get an American French guy to play the Scottish guy, and then the Scottish guy to play a Spaniard.
Yes.
That's triggering.
So
man.
you're not,
especially when the
you're
Spanish
not in-
guy is Sean Connery. Like that is the worst Spanish accent ever.
but you're just not embracing
Yes.
diversity, right?
Yes.
I am
yes to all
embracing.
these
I
things.
am embracing traditionalism.
Yes, but
Tune in
it's
last
the
week
new
to Book
age.
Club.
Yeah. I mean, yes, I would like to join some sort of weird pagan war cult in the woods. Not have a Spanish guy played by a Scottish guy and a Scottish guy played by an American French guy.
Is it an American Frenchman or a French
So
American?
just to point out,
How do you hyphenate those?
yes,
Uh,
with a Joe Louis and a Pepsi.
I don't know. I guess it depends on where he's born, but I mean, it's like it's African American, so French American.
I mean, fair enough. I don't really care how we hyphenate
But
them.
what-
Good movie, though.
Yeah, agreed. But I wish that Sean Connery was the main character. It would have been so much better.
I mean,
So-
that's
So
fair.
my wife gladly pointed at something out in the YouTube chat. When I said that I read it on the internet, you said it was wrong because the internet. Did the CBC fact check it for you?
Or
to prove
Facebook?
you're wrong?
Well, we know that the Facebook one is just a matter of opinion now, which it always has been, because if it was a matter of record, then
But
it
it's
would be...
proven that it's opinion.
Doesn't matter. It's their sandbox.
Yeah.
Rules are made up and the points don't matter. Speaking of points, a reminder for everyone to participate in the Patriot Challenge. That's our way to tell you to be a better person. Not necessarily like us. Although I did run 2 miles a day. That is not how I got my 45 minutes of exercise. While I am slow, I am not that slow. I did other things, but I'm working on the running thing again. My knees hurt. My legs hurt. My back hurts. Everything hurts. It all hurts.
Well, don't worry. I'll be joining you real soon. I got to get back into running because an executive decision. I decided that I'm applying for something in the next few months. So, and I know running is part of the
Physical
criteria for it.
requirements.
Yeah,
Well,
no,
I can
everything
run and
else is
suffer
good.
with you.
And
Is it a mile and a half timed run? The 2.4
I
kilometer?
believe so. Yeah. So
well, let me know
it's
what the
weird.
standard is, and we can work on it together. Because
Yeah.
I'm trying to work my way back down to the CAF standard for basic, and it's a mile and a half, 2.4 kilometers in I think it's under 12 minutes off the top of my head. And
See, so the worst part
my
about
knee's
that
not there right
is-
now.
Yeah, but to get 2.4 kilometers, or yeah, that's pretty much me running around my town.
Okay, so you have a
So you
defined
get to
track.
flip
That's-
everybody off as you go for a run.
And as I get faster, I can do it in the nude, and the cops aren't even here by the time I'm already getting dressed.
This is not legal advice or part of the Patriot Challenge.
But also is highly encouraged.
Yeah, I mean, bonus
But
points are always bonus
for
points,
just-
right?
Yeah.
But just for $1 an episode, you won't
Yeah.
get the live footage feed.
Yeah.
Oh, boy.
That is $1 well spent.
Does that mean I have to put us on a not safe for work site, not YouTube? Are we moving to Pornhub?
No.
It's probably inevitable that we're going to end up on something like that because eventually the Google will kick us off.
Well, isn't that where all the gun videos went? I thought all the
Yeah.
gun videos were going to the adult entertainment websites.
Yeah, they did that for a little while, but I think there's some other platforms out there now that
But
basically
from what
anyone
I've
that's even
heard-
remotely right wing has ended up on because they can't be anywhere else because they're censored.
Well, it's a good thing we're not extremely right wing. We're
Yeah.
just hate everybody equally.
Yeah, including the people on the right.
Which right?
Any
The
Exactly.
right,
right.
like conservative, because conservative is the only right-ish, or
Well, I mean,
But so also a
conservative.
word
What
of
have they
advice.
conserved lately? The party of crashing
government
the economy a
mandated
little bit slower.
steps.
Ooh,
What?
Melissa's on the ball. We could go to OnlyFans.
There you go. Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to shut down Patreon. We're going to cash out the Patreon bucks. We're going to move to the OnlyFans. And I'll have to figure out how that works. Something buttholes.
Yeah.
Implied lewd nudes?
Yes.
Unimplied lewd nudes?
Well, I guess
Nude
that depends.
implied-
How much are they paying?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, I'm not opposed to a nude podcast, depending on the dollar figure.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit opposed to a nude podcast.
No, I
don't
can
have
turn your
fans
video off
right
on my
now,
screen.
allegedly.
Okay, well, as long as we all have a plan.
Yeah. I'll just like open up the screen and just put a bunch of post-its on where I don't want to see, and then we're good.
Yeah, or like
But,
you just do
yeah,
this,
no,
right? You just move the camera so it's just your head.
Right. So
Yeah,
it's
but-
just from the neck up. That's
Yeah,
that's
Yeah.
nothing
That's
below
what
the
she
shoulders,
said?
gentlemen. I hope that's not what she said.
But,
All
I mean-
right. Well, we strategize on our plan for world domination and or what happens once we get kicked off of YouTube and where you can subscribe to our OnlyFans
Yeah.
or something like this. Only Beards? Is there an Only Beards? We should get that.
Yeah.
Should we?
Sorry, Ian.
We should make our
Not
own
allowed back.
Only Patriots.
Only Patriots.
We should make our own Only Patriots.
That's gonna get us a no-knock wellness check for sure. I'm in.
Yeah.
I'm in. I'm in.
I mean, in our defense, Joe Rogan will probably talk smack about us and not understand what the organization is about.
Fair.
Yeah.
Where did
But
we
I'd
end
be
off?
okay with
Exercise? Do exercise.
Yeah, we're
Yeah.
still on step 1 of the Patriot Challenge.
Yeah.
Practice
Do
the skill
half
for
of
10
what
minutes.
Joe Rogan does is do the exercise, not the DMT.
Practice the skill for 10 minutes, read a book for 15 minutes, drink your 2 liters of water, and complete a task that will improve your life. And if you want to post about it on social media, go to the website, grab the template, put little checkmark thingies, share it with your friends and or enemies, or your local CSIS agent. The world is your oyster.
Make sure to geotag it just to know where you are.
Yeah. Addresses are hard. Google Maps is a challenge. We understand technology is difficult.
Yeah.
Technology does allow us to do some cool stuff, though. Like, we have GoFundMe. So for a small percentage of the money raised, we can send money to people we like, doing things we like challenging the government's ability to ban our otherwise legal firearms. Legally appealing the government's asinine decisions is not cheap. Lawyers cost money. And our tax dollars pay for the government side. So if you want to help the people that have filed Section 74 appeals to the OIC, get on GoFundMe, send them some money, or email them s74process@gmail.com.
Yeah, and you might as well use the 3rd tier of your government funded, or sorry, your government allowed money to keep to fight this, because they mandatorily took taxes from you. That's step 1. Then they take part of that to fund the crown attorney, and then whatever money you have left, you got to pay taxes on.
Oh yeah, you're
Again.
paying.
So you might as well
paying,
take. So for $20, it only costs you $80.
Yeah.
But
Pretty
I mean,
much.
but I mean, with that $20, this is not a bad option. And I
Yeah.
mean, let's say, some people don't like contributing to money because they feel bad that it's like all I can afford is $5, right? But
But remember, for
when-
$1, you don't have to watch Pierre live on the internet in the nude. So $5
$5
Right?
is $5.
to fight the government
if-
is the steal.
if 5 of you get together and contribute $1 each, just only open up the link from the guy that subscribed, the $5 thing, and you won't see me on the nude.
I mean,
yeah.
yes, but also no.
It now thinking about it, I don't know how I figured this all out on the spur. And I mean,
Well-
I'm okay with it, but
Let's do some news. Tonight's episode, we are doing all the gun stuff that I have been ignoring for the last couple of weeks. Because we've had book club,
Yes.
and we've had COVID nonsense, and we've had other nonsense, and I've racked up a whole queue of gun news for the last 2 or 3 weeks worth. Let's start with a new bill that dropped. Bill C-22 died on the table under the last parliament. The new parliament now has Bill C-5, which is basically the last parliament's Bill C-22, almost verbatim.
Yeah,
We're
they just
talking
changed the
about-
number.
Well, because the numbering system is for the parliament that the bill is under, but you can't get that from just the bill's name. Anyway, in the whatever the last one was, the 43rd Parliament. I don't know if that's right. Somebody can fact check that. The last Parliament, it was Bill C-22. We touched on it very briefly at one point.
Yeah.
Bill C-5, same deal. So this comes out on December like the 7th. December 6th, I think, is the Ecole Polytechnique anniversary. Something like that. So, Ecole Polytechnique shooting in Montreal, kind of a big deal. Happened 32 years ago. The government says, we're going to continue to be tough on gun violence in this country. And then the very next day, they introduced Bill C-5, which will reduce, or I shouldn't say that, it will repeal mandatory minimum penalties for 14 offenses under the criminal code. 13 of those have to do with weapons or firearms. Where they say weapons, they just mean firearms, because it's just different terminology for the same difference. One of them is a tobacco offense. That's the other change. There's one of the 14 is a tobacco-related crime.
So I can run cigarettes again and not get charged with that?
No.
Well, just not charged as much.
It depends. It depends. And let me explain why it depends by reading the very beginning of the backgrounder line, the first paragraph in the bill. The government recognizes that there is systemic racism in Canada's criminal justice system. We have heard Canadians, the courts, and criminal justice experts, and seen the evidence of the disproportionate representation of Indigenous peoples as well as Black Canadians and members of marginalized communities, both as offenders and as victims. The proposed legislation would help address these issues.
Oh.
Courts are racist.
So because I'm white, this probably wouldn't apply?
Well, that's kind of where I was going with the tobacco thing. Yes, because you're not a marginalized community yet. Don't worry, they're working on that. Because you're not yet a marginalized community or a native or a Black Canadian or what have you, you are benefiting from the systemic racism in our criminal justice system. So if you were to go to the 14th point for the thing that they're removing, it's the selling, etc., of tobacco products and raw leaf tobacco. And there's specific sections in the criminal code, 121.1, paras 4, section A, 1, 2, and 3. So the mandatory minimums for those, 90 days on second offense, 180 days third offense, 2 years less a day on fourth and subsequent offenses.
This whole thing
I like the title though, selling etc. of tobacco products.
What's the etc.? Like what all like?
I don't know. I didn't look up what
I know, but it's like
one was
selling and growing or like selling and smoking. So like I'm gonna go to
it's
jail
probably
for
to do
smoking
with distribution and sale.
So the extra part is when someone bums a smoke from you and also ask for a lighter.
Yeah,
right.
Then you go.
I don't think
do you want me to
I don't want to look up this section. Oh, if you look up 121.1, you get a passage out of Psalms. Palms? I don't.
Yeah.
I'm bad at Bibles. What do the Christians call this? Palms?
Psalms, but let's go with palms though because it's funny.
Yeah.
I will lift up my eyes unto the hills, from whence cometh my help. My help cometh from the Lord, which made heaven and earth. He will not suffer thy foot be moved. He that keepeth thee will not slumber. Behold, that he keepeth Israel shall neither slumber nor sleep. Not really sure what that's in reference to. Definitely doesn't sound like the criminal code.
That's definitely got nothing to do with tobacco.
Just to clarify, what the fuck did you just call me?
Yes. But no, this
psalm, I think, and or a psalm. Again, not 100% on this.
This whole bill doesn't make any sense. Like they're trying to get tough on things by removing the mandatory minimums, and the way that they're going to enforce it is that if you happen to be a BIPOC, you're going to get less than whatever the mandatory minimum was, and if you're not a BIPOC, you're going to get something greater. So in order to make things equal, they're going to treat people differently. Whereas if they wanted equality and no racism, much like I said the other week, don't get rid of the mandatory minimum, just make that the mandatory minimum and maximum for an offense. Boom, problem solved. Everyone gets exactly the same punishment for the same crime. Problem solved.
First
originally
offense,
planning on
you get a
talking about
year in
guns.
jail. All right, but first offense, you get a year in jail. Second offense, you get 10 years. Third offense, you're gone for whatever we consider life. But now I'm just curious, right? So what would be the mandatory minimum as a white person, since this law wouldn't apply, compared to me hiring a minority and being charged for slavery? Which one's less?
You can't hire them and be charged for slavery, but I think that it would probably be better if you were to make them, at least on paper, the head of your crime family.
Yeah.
Then you would be technically their employee. That would probably work out better. But that was not the. I originally was thinking we were going to talk about guns, but we could talk about systemic racism because that's fun too. So, at what point do you just start calling these bills anti-white?
Well, just don't be a popular TV actor and then hire some other people to beat you up and pretend it's a hate crime.
I like that you think that that's a popular TV actor.
So
he was sort of.
So actually, I've got a funny story, way off topic, but just because we were talking about beating up and white in the same sentence. I know of a person that is part of that RCMP that went to northern Canada, middle of buttfuck nowhere, and there was something APB out, potential weapons charge, like a whole slew of stuff, like pretty much a douchebag person with the license plate. So said person I know found the vehicle in a parking lot in the back of a church and decided to, do whatever, call it in. And they went somewhere where there's not 1,000 cops on duty. So approached the vehicle, but said where they were and whatever, in case there's something they can send backup. And somehow ended up into a fisticuffs with this person. And, so they're doing shot for shot, I guess you could say. Guys getting a little squirmy. And out of absolutely nowhere, about 6 real authentic Canadians, I guess you could say, walked out and yelled out, "Hey, do you need help?" So this person I am speaking of is not a real authentic Canadian from before Christopher Columbus got here, and was worried that, well, this is a one-on-one fight, which is about to turn into a 7-on-1 fight. So he yelled back and forth, stay there, blah, blah, blah. The person I'm speaking of won that fisticuffs and got the person down. And then, 30 seconds later, other cop cars showed up from wherever. And when it was all said and done, those 6 people that showed up out of nowhere came up and said, "Are you good? Like, we were actually here to back you up." And, not trying to be whatever. He was just like, "Very much appreciate it. I didn't know there was a lot going on, a lot to process." And they told him, "No, you're our white guy to pick on." Right? But could you imagine if that was like a white person
weren't
saying,
his white guy?
"No,
yeah,
you're our original Canadian from before Christopher Columbus person to pick on," right? That'd be all over the news.
Oh, yeah.
But, right? Like, it's just, like, man, there's just, we're not gonna get into the racism thing. Like, I'm gonna go on a rant. We're gonna be on till fucking 2:00 in the goddamn fucking morning.
But we are, though, because the Indigenous adults represent 5% of the Canadian population, but 30% of federal prisoners, double what it was 20 years ago, and it's even higher in some provinces. And then Black Canadians account for 3% of the population, but 7.2% of the federal offenders.
So is this a systemic racism, as we're only imprisoning people of a visual minority compared to the white person?
Well, I see there are 2 possibilities.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. The first option is visible minorities are worse at committing crimes and are more likely to get incarcerated. A strong possibility, right? I mean,
But that's also potentially your white privilege speaking.
could be.
Yeah.
So it's possible that they're just worse at committing crimes and are getting caught and prosecuted for it. But I mean, there could be other things,
Yeah.
socioeconomic conditions that don't allow them to get the same quality of legal assistance, or that the system is set up in such a way that it benefits certain groups more than others. These are possibilities.
So, no, so I have a solution. So if you want to be a non-patriot, we'll call it, person, and you want to commit crime, if you commit the crime between 9 to 5 when we're all at goddamn fucking work, you'll probably get away with it.
No, cops work between 9 and 5 too.
Yeah.
Yeah, but they'll less likely assume that it's a.
Oh, I see what you say. So if you do it like in the middle of the afternoon as opposed to in the middle of the night.
Yeah, right. Which is surprising, because you're probably more likely to see a white person at night. Or is that racist?
The natural camouflage problem.
Well, except in winter.
Right? Yes.
Gotta get
Then
those
we blend in
overweights.
like.
Yeah.
Right, but like, so like all these statistics, like I would love to get. I mean, as much as I absolutely hate doing any kind of research, like I contribute sometimes to the articles we put in there in the show notes, and we talk about on nights, but a lot of times, like I get random stuff that comes on, and I was like, hey, this is kind of bullshit, and I'll send it to like our group chat that we chat about, right? But I mean, like at this point, like I'm really wanting to look into a lot of statistics about like, look, you know, oh, there's 30% uptake in indigenous or whites, like, well, obviously not whites,
Well,
because
the thing is,
like I really want to look at like, okay, well, what was the person charged with, right?
I feel like you can obtain most of that information. I don't know how easy it is. I'm just going off of what's in the bill, which was the stats Gavin read.
Yeah, but I mean, there's a disproportionate number of people from those two particular noticeable minority groups that happen to be involved in crime and are getting committed in crime. And I think the problem is that people are saying that, one, they're doing these things at a disproportionate amount. So according to the people that are complaining about this, I think what they're saying is that when a non-BIPOC, so a white cisgendered hetero male goes and commits a crime, they're getting a lesser punishment, so they're not in jail as much, or they're not getting convicted or punished at all, really. And so it's just like, boys will be boys, and they just let them go, whereas the person of color will be charged and, you know, convicted, and then, you know, get the more than the mandatory minimum is what these people are putting forth as this is the problem in this country. I don't think they're quite getting at the, like, that's more likely to be true, and that like there are some things that existed in the past that are still a bit of a stumbling block for certain groups and allow them to have some more barriers to getting a normal job and employment and all of that, like the socioeconomic stuff, that then either culturally or through everything else kind of pushes them into a life of crime. So the reason that they're overrepresented in the prison system is because they are committing more crimes than, say, other groups of people. And I think that's where we need to address things and do that stuff to, you know, take away the stuff that causes people to go into that type of business, if you will.
I also think we should end the reserve system.
Yeah.
Yes.
But like getting rid of the punishment.
I'm not sure if that's exactly what
makes,
Gavin was getting at, but it is.
Well, I mean, if that helps, then I'm all for it. But like,
but you know what? As a white person, I'm offended that I don't have a reserve that I could potentially
But-
go hunting with an AR-15.
Well, I'm sure we'll have reserves at some point, but we won't be able to hunt on them.
No,
They'll
we
be
won't be
called
able to do a lot
gulags.
of shit in them.
But no, so the problem is though, is that without addressing the socioeconomic things that force these people into that lifestyle, or dealing with the cultural stuff that glorifies that lifestyle, all you're doing is reducing the penalties for it, which then makes it even more attractive, because it's like,
Well, and
now I'm not going to get in trouble at all, and this is becoming more and more lucrative.
the
Right.
penalties is really where I wanted to go with this originally, but
Oh, absolutely.
I think at some point we need to start calling these bills just what they are, which is, I think, anti-white.
Yeah.
We're applying
Like-
different rules for different people based on their appearance.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I suppose you could call it racist, but this is just anti-white propaganda at this point, because we're going to make different rules for different observable groups of people. And the firearms and weapons one, so 13 out of the 14 changes for mandatory minimums. Let me knock a couple of these off.
Yep.
Using a firearm or imitation firearm in the commission of an offense. Possession of a firearm.
Does that include a banana in my pocket?
I don't know if that might not be an imitation firearm.
Okay.
But are you happy to see me or not?
But I'm just curious in case I'm ever walking with the banana and like my hand twitches and someone thinks it's a gun.
Well, I
just wanna
suppose
know.
if you had the banana in your pocket and you were in a bank and you motioned it as if it was a gun,
well, I
then
think
you
that's
would
the thing.
be
I think
charged
as
as if it was a gun.
I don't know what the part of the law is that says that, but I think that that's the thing, is if you intimate that something is a weapon, then it's treated as a weapon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yes, don't rob banks
So
with
no-
bananas.
Yeah.
Okay. So from now on, banana stays in the truck. Gotcha.
Yeah. Better safe than sorry.
We're on the first one.
Yeah.
Using a firearm or imitation firearm in the commission of offense. Possession of a firearm or weapon knowing its possession is unauthorized. Possession of a prohibited or restricted firearm with ammunition. Possession of a weapon obtained in the commission of a crime. In the commission of an offense. Weapons trafficking, excluding firearms and ammunition. Possession for the purposes of weapons trafficking, which is somehow different. Also excluding firearms and ammunition. Importing or exporting knowing it is unauthorized. Subsection 103, para 2, subpara 1. I think that they're talking about firearms again, but it doesn't actually say that in the bill. But I think because of the subsection they're referencing, they're talking about importing and exporting firearms. Discharging a firearm with intent. Discharging a firearm recklessness. Robbery with a firearm. Extortion with a firearm. And then selling, etc. of tobacco.
Okay. So going back 2-3. So if I discharge a firearm without the intended intent, do I get away with it?
There's
so
a
if you
difference between
negligently
discharging a firearm with
discharge, it's
intent
legal.
and right. So there's discharging a firearm with intent, 244 para 2 section B, versus discharging a firearm recklessness, 244.2 para 3 section B. Both of those previously were 4 years, 4 years incarceration. They are now not mandatory minimum penalty, or should this bill become law, they will stop being mandatory minimum penalties.
I mean, don't get me wrong.
Intent and recklessness is like, recklessness is I'm just like shooting my gun where I shouldn't be, versus intent is like I'm trying to like stack some charges here and shoot somebody.
But I mean, I'm also trying to figure out the details. Being a legal firearm owner.
So this is where you can't
who is
really
not
do
a
that,
visual
because if you look
minority.
at some of the things, you go, well, this is ridiculous. And if you ever see anybody get charged with a crime that's related to gun stuff, it's not just, oh, they had an illegal gun. It's they had an illegal gun. They were in possession of ammunition. They were in possession of ammunition for restricted or prohibited, and like all of the things. And some of those are mentioned. They
stacking.
And it's just like you get for one crime of I had an illegal gun ends up being like 50 charges.
It is separate sections in the criminal code.
Yeah. So
They are multiple
I
and
mean,
separate crimes.
Yes, but
right. So
for one act of
Yes.
if I had
that's fair.
if I had an
If
illegal gun,
if you
I would
robbed a
get
bank with a gun that you had smuggled into the country that was a prohibited firearm and it had ammunition, that is, I think we're up to 6 charges just for the gun.
yeah.
so
But
not
then you
even
get
so
all
I
these
guess
other
and ammunition, gun and
tertiary
ammunition.
like, oh, it wasn't
Right.
locked in
And
transport,
on top of
like
that,
all
like
the
the
other shit they
actual
hit you
robbery
into.
of the bank. Well, so that's
Yeah.
what I so like. If I'm illegally in possession of a prohibited handgun with ammunition, and I rob a bank, I've got the illegal importation, possession of a prohibited weapon without a license, possession of a prohibited weapon with ammunition, possession of a weapon obtained in the commission of an offense, possession of a weapon in the commission of an offense.
Yeah.
Those are different.
Improper
Weapons
storage, improper
trafficking,
transportation,
improper
like all
storage, improper trafficking, improper storage, improper transportation. Depending on if it's the type of prohibited weapon that it is, there's another charge on that. Depending on the magazine, there's another charge on that, and also robbery. So I've managed to get to 10.
Yeah, they just start throwing because they want to throw enough shit at the wall so that some of it sticks. Because like they're going.
I don't even know if it's. I don't see. There's a distinction between incompetence and malice, and I think that you're up to a point that they're throwing stuff at it to see what sticks. But I think they're throwing stuff at it more so that it can be pled down to lesser charges.
Okay, so historically, I think it was throwing shit at the wall so that it sticks. Now, yes, they absolutely, I think, use these as bargaining things to get them to plead to a lesser charge and go, we'll get rid. Because I mean, almost always the firearms things get like pled down to nothing, and you get like a slap on the wrist for the drug offense.
So I don't even think
go hand in hand.
So I don't even think it gets to that extreme. I think it's the propaganda news that comes around that when they find someone with a handgun and they're like, look, he's being charged with 18 offenses, right? They don't talk about when that person either pleads guilty or whatever, only 2 charges stick, right? That doesn't hit mainstream media. But when they catch someone with a gun and they're like, he's facing, 15 charges, right? That catches people's attentions, and then nothing is disregarded. So I think that
originally it was sort of the intent was that if we throw enough stuff at them, they're actually going to get punished. And because everyone's going to have a good lawyer and get off on something. But if we throw more and more crap at them, then they get punished for longer and all of the things. And I don't necessarily disagree with that model, especially when like you actually have gone and committed a violent crime and all the things stack. And you should be harshly punished for not fitting in, especially violently not fitting in.
Let's look at a couple of those things that they're keeping. So mandatory minimum penalties will be maintained in the criminal code for, and I have some examples: weapons trafficking, possession for the purpose of weapons trafficking, making an automatic firearm, importing or exporting weapons unauthorized, causing death by criminal negligence using a firearm, manslaughter using a firearm, attempted murder using a firearm, discharging with intent, discharging recklessness, sexual assault using a firearm. That's terrifying. Aggravated sexual assault using a firearm. I take it back. That's terrifying.
It just gets worse.
Kidnapping using a firearm, hostage taking using a firearm, robbery with a firearm, and extortion with a firearm. So like, there are still firearms offenses in the criminal code that will have mandatory minimums, and like those are some big ones. And I'm on board with this. Like,
but
if you do manslaughter with a firearm, like, I don't know if 4 years is enough of a mandatory minimum penalty. If you do attempted murder with a firearm, and this one's
are we not racistly enforcing those rules, or it's only the 14 rules that?
Oh no. So we're keeping those offenses that I just listed off.
Those ones we're not racist when we enforce those laws. Only the 13 firearms ones and the 1 tobacco one are the ones that we enforce.
And there are 3 changes to the Controlled Drugs and Substances Act, which is outside of the criminal code. I'll read the whole para. It's very dense. To address the over-incarceration rate of Indigenous peoples, as well as Black Canadians and members of marginalized communities, MPPs would be repealed for all offenses in the CDSA Trafficking of possession for the purposes of trafficking, 2 separate offenses. Importing and exporting or possession for the purpose of exporting, 2 separate offenses. Production of substance Schedule 1 or 2, 2 offense. For some reason, they didn't pluralize that one. 2 offense.
It's the quality of journalism these days.
Buddy, this is in the bill. This is not even journalism.
Yeah, same, but different.
Well, I mean, you're not wrong.
Yeah.
So, I guess, yeah, trafficking or possession for the purpose of trafficking, importing and exporting for the purpose of trafficking, production of Schedule 1 and 2 substances. I guess this is a problem that we have with the Indigenous and Black Canadian communities.
Well, or at least that when they get caught for doing it, we are more strict on them than we are when other people get caught.
We're more strict on them by removing the mandatory minimum penalty.
No, we were. And so in order to do that, we now need to remove that, which technically if the judge is still racist, he could still charge that person with whatever, because just because there's no minimum doesn't mean we still can't double whatever it is compared to other races. But somehow this is going to solve that problem.
So,
I mean,
I got a question
do you know what a
about
Schedule 1 drug is, just like out of curiosity?
Well, wouldn't that be like heroin and cocaine and that kind of stuff? Aren't those Schedule 1?
Heroin, yes. Cocaine, no. Heroin, LSD, marijuana, mescaline, MDMA, GHB, ecstasy, magic mushrooms, methyloquin, and bath salts.
That's a very strange, like, some of those, like, all of those things are probably bad, but some of those things probably don't belong in the same category as some of those other things.
I'm just saying that's what's on the Schedule 1 list.
Yeah. Whoever made that list is an idiot. But then again, whoever made a lot of lists in the government
made that list.
Yeah. Like the banned rifles list and the restricted rifles list and the everything else.
I'm not saying the government makes good decisions when it comes to like
dumb.
Government is the dumbest organization of people to ever organize. Well, maybe after labor unions.
Same, but different.
I've got one quick question. Going back a few minutes ago, because apparently my internet is shit tonight again. So it was one of those firearm charges that you were talking about. I unfortunately don't remember because I've had quite a bit to drink. But let's say me, Andrew, and Gavin go to the range, right? And we go shooting. I don't have my restricted license yet, but both of you do, and we all have the exact same bag, right? And you guys put one of your pistols, because I was like, ooh, I want to shoot a pistol, and right, we somehow accidentally swap bags, right? Because they're the exact same, and I thought it was on the left, you thought it was on the right, and somehow we ended up switched up. But you stored your pistol properly, but now I'm in possession of a restricted weapon without the proper license. Would that fall under the same laws as one of the ones you said, which even if I wrote it down, I probably wouldn't remember.
So there's a couple of differences. One, you have a license. So anytime you break a gun law, you're going to get treated harsher than those that don't have a license, which it should be backwards.
So should I keep,
because you should know better. And two, you're white.
So I should recommend just keeping Vaseline in the car, and if a cop car pulls up behind me, just put
strongly
there.
Recommend retaining a good firearms lawyer.
Yeah.
But
get the legal insurance. It's worth every penny in case you ever need it.
Absolutely.
Ordinarily, I'm an insurance is a bunch of garbage kind of guy. But for us, firearms defense insurance is a amazing thing to have for how little it costs.
The only thing that I can see you falling under with this in that situation is possession of a firearm knowing it is unauthorized. But Also, honest mistake. Don't call the cops. Just give me back my pistol.
No,
Yeah.
no, and I'm not saying
this is
call the
illegal.
cops.
If you have ammo
No.
in there, he could potentially get charged with the having a restricted or prohibited item and the ammo.
Right, but not
True.
really, because I mean, okay, so all depending, right? If you own a Desert Eagle and we decide to go shoot Desert Eagle, I mean, is there a non-restricted weapon that would take 50 cal pistol ammo, right?
Well, but that's the thing, though. You don't need a license to actually be in possession of ammunition. You need to have a license to purchase ammunition.
Right. Yeah.
So you can make all of your own.
I'm going to say that if you had a non-restricted, like a regular PAL, and somehow ended up with your buddy's restricted firearm, you should not be in possession of of a restricted firearm because you're breaking law. Beyond that, you should consult a lawyer.
Yeah,
but I'm not saying like I get home and open up the bag and be like, oh my god, I have Gavin in this scenario, Gavin or Andrew's pistol, right? Like the first phone call I'm gonna make.
Desert Eagle 50 cal, it's Gavin's.
Yeah,
that's way more gangster than something I would shoot.
But I'm not gonna call the cops, right?
No,
but let's just say
if they happen to show up at your house for something unrelated,
not even show up. I'm driving. I'm driving, and for whatever reason, I somehow get,
you could absolutely be charged for all of that stuff. Yeah. And that's the weirdness of the thing is that although you have a license, technically if you have they're going to charge you with all of the things that they can possibly charge you with. You're going to end up with one of those things that's got like 10 things, and then it's going to be up for your lawyer to fight it out with the other lawyers to decide which of those things actually stick and what they don't, and then what they're going to go to court and try you with. So even though you have a license, they could very well charge you with having the ammunition with the restricted or prohibited item because you don't have a license for that item, despite the fact that you have a license. Because again, even to be in possession of ammo, you don't even need a license. So how is that even a charge? Except that now you have the item you're not supposed to have and the ammo that goes with it. So now it's super dangerous.
Yes. We're good with that. I have one thing that I want to do with, I agree with the NDP. This is in relation to Bill C5. It's on CP24.
They want to abolish all gun laws because they're all an infringement?
No. Joint statement. So, conservative justice critic Rob Moore says in a statement, the bill is soft on crime and puts communities and victims at risk. Moore says his party, the Conservatives, have concerns about the proposal for courts to have the discretion to sentence offenders to serve their sentencing in the community instead of in prison for certain offenses such as sexual assault, human trafficking, kidnapping. He added the Conservatives believe violent offenses committed with firearms deserve mandatory minimum prison time as opposed to weakening firearms laws. In a joint statement, NDP justice critic Randall Garrison and mental health and addictions critic Gord Johns said that while they believe the bill is a good step, it does not come close to what is needed to remedy the over-incarceration of Indigenous and Black people in the justice system. Garrison and Johns added that the Liberal government needs to take steps towards decriminalizing possession of illegal substances for personal use and creating a comprehensive strategy to address the crisis of overdose-related deaths. What the fuck? I love the NDP.
Yeah, but you can get Narcan for free. There shouldn't be any overdose deaths.
But that means you have to do drugs with a friend that you trust and knows how to use Narcan.
Yeah.
And they can't do drugs at the same time.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter.
Only one drug at a time.
It's free and our tax dollars pay for it. We solved the problem.
Narcan doesn't.
I'm not using my logic for this. I am using government logic.
No, but see, this is the problem though. The Narcan only works for so long that it doesn't even work all that good. The minute it starts to wear off.
I agree with the NDP.
I mean, it happens every now
bill
and then.
Does not come close to what is needed to remedy the over-incarceration of the Indigenous or Black people in the justice system. And we should also decriminalize a bunch of shit.
Yeah.
Like machine guns.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know
Why is there still a mandatory minimum penalty for manufacturing an automatic firearm? We should decriminalize that. I want recreational machine guns for all my friends.
Yeah.
That's
Thermonuclear
probably not
devices
what the
for
guy from the
everyone,
NDP meant, but that's what I'm taking from this.
No, but if you're gonna have legal injection sites where someone can take heroin, go sit somewhere warm, warm it up, put it in a needle, I've watched Drugs Inc. Right? Put it in a needle and shoot it up and sit there for fucking 10 minutes. Why is there not a place I can take my fucking machine gun and go shoot with, whether it's a paid person or a volunteer?
Yeah, I volunteer to shoot machine guns.
Why is there not, like a safe machine gun range where it's like, because like the heroin's illegal.
Buddy, every range is a safe machine gun range if you know what you're doing.
The minute you take your heroin to this spot, even though it's illegal and it's illegal to do all the things, you can go and do it there, and like you can trip balls and then you're fine and then you go home. Why can't I do that with the range? It's like if I get caught outside of the range with it, sure, get me in trouble. But if I manage to get to the range, I should be able to shoot that machine gun with no worry in the world, and they can't come there and arrest me.
If you have a machine gun and you can't get to the range, we have a whole different set of problems.
I'm just saying, hypothetically, right? If I had one and I could get to the range without getting pulled over for speeding or something else, and I get
you mean like that? I mean like, because I would have it mounted on the back of my Hilux.
Yeah, and then we just throw a tarp over it. And then we get to the range.
That's what we would do.
I'm just curious here, right? So let's say, right? So if we're in possession of a firearm, or an illegal firearm, machine gun, whatever, right? So if I'm overdosing on heroin because I'm white, so I won't make the news, but let's just say I'm one of the people that would make the news, and this would be whatever, and someone administered Narcan to me and got me to the hospital to get the proper antidotes, whatever it is for it, right? Would I get charged for being in possession of heroin?
Well, that depends. Did you use it all, and that's why you're overdosing, or do you still have some left?
So, in my defense,
I don't know how the drug charges work. This is a lawyer question.
In this scenario, I'm not white, so I don't know if Gavin's
it all depends, right? Like in theory, if you are passed out in the street and the police have to show up and Narcan you and then arrest you for possession, it is entirely possible that you would get charged for the possession. If you use them all, it's kind of hard to charge you with possession because you were not actually in possession of anything. So,
but at the same time,
do them all.
But at the same time, right? Is there anything of legal possession that could require you or require someone to use Narcan on you to counteract? Yes.
Lots of prescribed medications like opiates, like painkillers, so Percocets and things like that are also opiates that people are having OD problems with, especially elderly people that can't remember whether they have taken their pills or not. And then also like Western medicine and all of it's like over prescribing of pills for pain gets people hooked on things, and then the doctors keep writing the scripts for them even though people don't need them anymore. Or they just give you, like when I've gone in for stuff, and they've given me pain pills, it's like, okay, here's your prescription for like 50 Percocets, and it's like, I don't need 50, but like I know I'm gonna need a couple because like I was in a lot of pain. So now I've taken, the 2 or 3 that I needed to get me through that first day or two. And now I have whatever's left of my prescription. So like legally I'm allowed to be in possession of these because they wrote me a script for it. And now if I wanted to get messed up on them, I could take a whole bunch of these, and there's not a whole lot anyone could really do because I'm not breaking the law. But Narcan would certainly help counteract that, at least temporarily, until the cops or the paramedics would be able to show up with the oxygen and all of the other things that I need to not die.
So since I have to prove, right, with my medical records that I have a vaccine passport and I've gotten the double jab, potentially more than now that they're changing everything. Wouldn't it be very easy for someone to find out if I have a script for anything and just anything in general, right? Whether it
No.
be a narcotic of some sort or
No, because there's no
they
centralized drug
prescribe you-
databases in this province. In Ontario, in other provinces, I'm reasonably sure the same thing is true. We're going to press on to gun stuff, though.
I like guns.
Okay.
Well,
Yes.
so to
Good.
criminals, which is more of the theme.
Mm.
Ottawa Sun. This is what do you call it? Opinion piece from Brian Lilly. Gangsters, guns, and CERB a real headache for Trudeau Liberals, which I'm going to editorialize and say not really. I get what Lilly is getting at, but that's not really true. So it turns out that about $100,000 in CERB money has been used by gangs in Montreal to purchase illegal firearms.
I mean,
Holy shit, gangs in Montreal got $100,000 in CERB money, guys.
so
Well-
a bunch of criminals abused a government program where they could get free money and then use that to further their criminal ends. Shocking.
So do we know the identity or potentially the pigmentation of the people that committed these crimes? Because
I can
if
make some
they-
guesses. Lilly doesn't say because, well,
yeah,
'cause it's
right.
Brian
Because
Lilly.
if they were mostly
I guess-
pigmented, like all three of us, they would probably get charged with being supremacists and building a militia in their backyard. But
And
if
that's
not,
why you don't build a
then
militia
go-
in your backyard.
Yeah.
Tune in at the end of the month when we do book club about counterinsurgencies.
Right, but I mean, going back to the previous bill we were just talking about, right? Like, this is all racism, and it's like, I work for whatever I can buy for myself, not through proceeds of most crimes. I mean, I may try and do something that doesn't mandatory make me use government theft as an option, allegedly, but right, so I do anything and everything and I follow all the laws. Like, so if they know $100,000 or even $1,000 has been used for proceeds to purchase illegal guns, whether imported or sourced domestically at that point, if you don't have a firearms license for the specific criteria
so
for that gun, whether it's non-restricted, restricted.
It doesn't say, I don't think in this article, but another article I was reading about this, same thing. So the vast majority of these firearms have been smuggled in from the US. The vast majority have been prohibited handguns, and there's also been Quebec police have seized a number of rifles as well. But the vast majority of these firearms have been prohibited handguns.
Yeah, I'm sure if you were to look into, like, if we had a magic 8-ball or something and could look into people's finances and all of that stuff, I'm sure we could find some criminals that way. And if we did that and saw some of them that also abuse CERB, we would find that a bunch of other people use CERB payments for drugs, probably for prostitution and gambling and all kinds of other vices and criminal activity, because that's what criminals do. If you give them the opportunity to get free money, they're going to take that money and they're going to use it to, much like anyone else would, improve their fighting position. And I'm sure there are some people that are not criminals, like legal gun owners, that also use their CERB payments to buy guns legally.
If I was eligible for CERB, if I could get a CERB payment, I'd probably buy a gun. Like, if somebody accidentally handed me $1,000, I'd use it to buy a gun.
Yeah. So, and I know for a fact, like in the US, they had their payments there, their stimulus checks. A lot of my friends in the US bought what they called Trump pressers with their stimulus money.
But so going back even 6 minutes ago from the conversation we're having right now, isn't Quebec technically the only province right now where you have to register every single firearms, whether it's restricted
That's
or
true.
non-restricted.
Yes, there is a
So
However,
provincial
I
registry.
feel like if you're buying illegally smuggled prohibited firearms, you probably are not showing your PAL and calling the RCMP firearms program to register the transfer of a new prohibited firearm.
Yeah.
Somehow I feel like
So-
criminals are not completing that step, the same as you and I.
So I think we need another. We need common sense laws, not gun laws. Where if you don't have common sense, I can take care of that issue with a firearm.
I mean,
I am generally in favor of this, but then we start having to do things like bust out the Hugo Boss outfits and people get kind of uppity.
yeah.
I'm not a fan of wearing a suit, but if I gotta put a suit on,
What
to
about
do
like a flashy
things-
armband?
oh, but buddy, hold on, I'm not done. If we're talking where we can take, I mean, the systemic racism and the cost per capita or per person or per tax dollar you pay to incarcerate someone that is a complete, I won't even say complete,
Quebecer.
but someone, I mean, yeah, that's not wrong. But right, like, I mean, I have a 8-cent solution per person that is incarcerated for the next 15 years.
I don't know that we can just go around and extrajudicially deal with those problems in that way. Not that that's not an option. I just don't know that it's a good long-term solution.
But that's also because we're white.
Again, probably not wrong. But if we enforce the mandatory minimum penalties so that criminals that were caught buying illegally smuggled and illegally sold prohibited firearms with no licenses and not registering with the firearms program, if we just enforce those laws as written, because I don't have C5 open in front of me anymore, but it's like 4-year charge, 2-year charge, 4-year charge, 4-year charge, something like that. So like, if we just apply the mandatory minimums for all that and put these people in jail for like 10 years, it's not a great solution, but it's not a bad solution.
Right, but then so I don't disagree that it's like, okay, fine, take that mandatory minimum from like 2-3 years or 1 year, depending on whether you were a person originally from here before Christopher Columbus was here, or the Vikings, depending which way you want to look at it.
I prefer the Leif Erikson story over the Columbus story. Columbus was kind of a jerk.
I'm sure Leif Erikson was too, but
right, but so it doesn't matter, right? Say you're caught
at least he's our
possession, right? In a possession of a firearms or a firearm, sorry, whether you are illegal or not, fine, whatever, you can start charging me. And let's say go back to the scenario where we all went to the shooting range and somehow I ended up with Gavin's bag because he purchased the exact same bag as me. And somehow we swap bags, right? So let's just say that's not even an option. You're caught with a Glock in your pants halfway down your ass. Walking around downtown anywhere in Canada, doesn't matter.
Have you just never been downtown and accidentally forgot your Glock in your pants? We've all been there. It's okay.
Oh, I mean, yes, I have been subject to walking down south and having something else that rhymes with the Glock hang out of my pants, but not that one. But
boy.
But let's just say, right? Okay,
title. So rhymes with Glock.
But okay, so let's fine. You don't want to take mandatory. Well, no, I vote at that point that you need to put mandatory minimums, right? Where there could be a court proceeding in a scenario that I discussed that we all went shooting and somehow ended up with the wrong bag, but I'm a legal gun owner and I can go to the range and everything. And I have met you and Gavin because I somehow decided to go to Toronto for a weekend. And we go to the gun range and we whatever. And whether I end up back home or at a different house of the proprietary person of that firearm, right? Fine, there can be a legal proceeding. But if you don't own a firearms license, you can't prove to the fact that, hey, I went to the gun range today with like 6 other people because I like going shooting with people, and somehow I ended up with someone's gun, and I don't know how. And fine, you can prove all that, but if I don't own a firearms license, right, I've somehow ended up with at this point it's considered restricted, but not even restricted, whether it's non-restricted, restricted, or prohibited. If you don't have a piece of paper that says I can own a shotgun, right? You're going to jail for 20 years. End of conversation. First offense, you can be 15, 16, because all we're doing at this point is, well, right, how this article or these articles are written, right? Well, if you're white, you'll go to jail for 4 years. But if you're anything else other than white, you'll probably just get a little slap on the PP, and then you can go back and probably
this is part
sign
of my
that gun
problem
back
with
out.
mandatory minimums, right? No, mandatory
Yeah.
minimums generally it's a poor system of enforcement. But I would at least like an equal system of enforcement.
Yeah, that's why I like my no minimum, no maximum. It's just this is
what it is. Well, the problem that you run into with this is everyone's situation is different. So what if you are Pierre and you're bad at figuring out which range bag is yours? Should you have to go to jail for 4 years for being in possession of a firearm?
That's for your lawyers to figure out. Much like it's for the lawyers to figure out now, but at least then if you're guilty or not.
But changing it to but changing it to a criteria where, right, even though I have my non-restricted license, I somehow ended up with a restricted weapon in my possession, right? So this is that very fine line where we all went to the range and I walked away with Gavin's bag.
Of a line. I don't think it's that fine of a line.
But that's where
and maybe if they're going to apply the law exactly the way that it's written and there's a mandatory minimum and like you're going to jail for 4 years for possession of a restricted firearm, I don't see that flying, because it's like, hey, I made a mistake and I picked up I picked up the black range bag and it had a firearm in it and it belonged to my buddy and I was going to give it back to him, and like, you know, honest mistake such as it is. And I mean, like, that's kind of a BS excuse because it's not.
But again,
really
like, it would be one of those things where like it's all situational, but like that depends. So how are you getting caught if you're literally on the way home from the range and you get pulled over for speeding, and all three of us went and bought the exact same range bag at the same day at the same place, because it was the deal, like a 3-for-1 deal that we couldn't say no to, and I put my pistol in it and you ended up with it and you get pulled over on the way home. That would be kind of one of those things to go, holy shit, that's not mine. Please call this person right now and let them know, and they can come and pick this up. There would be evidence that would show that you were just at the range, because chances are that like there's a log book or there's something that you had to sign into, or there's a camera that would show you there, and it would show me there, it would show Andrew there, and you would have that evidence to prove that this was unintentional.
Yes, but if you want to cut and dry a mandatory minimum or just a criteria, at that point it doesn't matter that somehow either you, me, someone took the wrong
feel like there's a lot of discretionary power.
But that's up for the judge to determine whether you actually committed a crime knowingly. So if you do something by accident, right?
And that's the difference,
right?
Is so like there that criteria for we all went to the range, right? Just the scenario said I grabbed the wrong bag. Technically, I am in possession of a restricted license.
Yes, but there's intent.
Firearm without
intent is
a restricted
important, right? Because like if I punch somebody in the face,
pressing forward,
that's illegal.
Pressing forward.
But yeah, if there's self-defense, it's not. But it's judges make the determination and your lawyers fight it out. That's the thing.
Do you want to see another fun one? I got another fun one.
I like.
I'm about to agree with the Bloc Québécois.
En français? Or did they translate it?
Ça c'est vrai? C'est bon? Je suis un ananas?
Oui.
The Bloc Québécois, this is in CTV News. The Bloc Québécois succeeded in expediting a formation of a parliamentary committee to study the illegal trafficking of firearms in Canada. What the fuck? I love the block.
Yes, I don't disagree. So what? I didn't read this article. I read
That's okay.
all
I
the
will
other ones
summarize. So
except for
this is
this
in
one.
CTV News. House unanimously passes
Okay.
Quebec MP motion to set up a parliamentary committee to study gun trafficking. So they have decided, as they're coming into their year-end break, the Bloc has moved that we should have a national security committee formed to undertake a study on gun control and illegal gun trafficking and increasing gun crime committed by street gang members as a priority. This falls under the public safety minister, who is no longer Bill Blair.
Thank God.
It is now someone who is somehow worse. Marco Medico? Medicino? I don't know how to say this guy's name.
It's pronounced
Well,
medicinal. I got a
is it-
tax credit for it.
I have a prescription for this.
Yeah.
So the RCMP is going to get involved in this. This stems from shootings that have happened in Montreal and Ottawa. I am shocked that I agree with the Bloc. But of course, the CTV News, the mainstream news media can't get this article out without making a passing jab that during the last election campaign, the Trudeau government pledged to give provinces power to ban handguns. Quebec has unanimously voted in their National Assembly in February of last year that they want the power to ban handguns in Quebec. For everybody keeping track at home, February last year was before the election when Trudeau promised to give provinces the power to ban handguns. Provinces do not, and still do not, and will not get the power to ban handguns because this is a federal issue because the firearms laws are federal. Although that apparently doesn't matter because, like in Quebec, they have to register all their long guns because they made it a law. So fuck the Firearms Act.
I mean, this is probably a way for Trudeau to have pandered to his francophone friends. But I do think that there is a way for them to do that more so than there was a way for the municipalities to do it, because the municipal powers are granted from the provincial government, whereas the provincial powers are granted by the federal government. And with having like provincial CFOs and things like that, they can effectively empower the CFOs to do as they please and say,
So
no new pistols will be given a registration certificate for the province and things like that,
but
as opposed to having like the municipal police enforce something. I mean, it's still a federal law, but it's the way that they regulate it is sort of provincially, because like your registration certificate and your ATT allows you to transport it within the province.
Well, I can't see them making a patchwork of laws for this, but I do agree with the Bloc that we need a committee struck to study legislation regarding smuggling firearms into this country, because criminals should not be able to obtain firearms. Like,
so we should just have we should just have a few people look through all the crime records or whatever, however it's worded, for the police forces of all provinces, municipalities, and country, right? So all those serial numbers that they automatically punch in the system and doesn't show up somehow, some way as being imported and sold in Canada. I mean, we can hire like 2 people and have this solved, of looking more in depth, right? So say Glock 19 somewhere in Canada was used and we have no record of it being in Canada or being sold in Canada. Okay, well, I'm pretty sure it's not that hard to get in touch with Glock anywhere and being like, hey, is this serial number manufactured or purchased in your country of some sort? to be able to trace it back, being like, hey, is, all these gun crimes being used, or sorry, these guns being used in the proceeding of crime being sourced in Canada, or
I mean, yes, but I'm not.
Russia,
I don't.
US, China, I don't give a shit where.
I mean,
Where are they
yes,
being
and I see
purchased
what
and
I
sourced?
see what you're saying, Pierre. But I don't care that the gun is being used in the commission of. I care that it's the gun is not registered, where it came from or how it was smuggled in. Like the problem still comes to we have a giant undefended border with one of the most heavily armed countries in the world, and we keep having firearms smuggled in from that country.
But
We
that's the thing, they
need to
don't
enforce our
advertise.
sovereignty. We need to enforce our God damn it! We need to enforce our borders.
Yes.
What I'm trying to get at,
Yeah.
sovereignty. Might put that as a show title too. We got a lot of possible options this week.
There's potentially a few because I've had half a bottle of whiskey.
That's a show.
But
Well,
yeah,
yeah.
but
What we need to do is
even
go
then,
back
right?
to a couple weeks ago when CBSA was actually stopping people at the illegal border crossing. Sorry, irregular border crossing.
Well, but did
I'm
they
with the block on
stop
this.
them?
We need to understand why we are having
Yeah.
all of these firearms smuggled into the country, and we need to do something about it. Because criminals in Montreal should not be able to use their CERB checks to buy illegal handguns. I should be using CERB checks to buy regular ones.
I don't even care. Like, I don't even care about using CRB guns. Let me carry a gun, and if some guy wants to pull one out, because
Because he thinks
we'll
you've got a
call
Glock in
him.
your pocket?
No, that's another word that rhymes with it. Is just protrudes sometimes. But Joe Schnitzel is standing on my street corner that I've been there a few times, and he's selling the now legalized devil's lettuce that is still legal if you're not government funded or paying your mandatory theft on it. And I decide I want to pull a 9mm on him. But me as a regular person doesn't want to get shot. And I decide I want to take my legally purchased and hopefully trained, have taken classes for me to be able to handle this properly, want to do something about it. That's the solution. Not
Yeah, I'm
let's
not going to advocate
pay
on the internet that
20
we allow people to solve legal problems through that. That's not a thing that we're going to do because that's going to get us kicked off YouTube.
Why are we going to pay? Why are we going to pay a bunch of people to sit there
I'm
and
not
study something about, like,
going to argue about
is
the
this
being
from
right or wrong.
Canada
I'm just
or
going to say
US?
we're not going to say that on YouTube because that's not a not a discussion we're going to get banned for. Because if we're going to get banned, I want it to be something good. Let's do another one. I'm going to pick on police officers because...
Okay.
And I know there are police officers that listen to this show. And those of you that listen to the show are probably good people, but you work with some assholes.
Yes.
Sort your shit out. This one's Toronto police officer shot renowned gunsmith won't talk to SIU. That's in the CBC. The CBC is calling Roger Kotenko a renowned gunsmith. Let that fucking sink in for a minute.
Wow. I mean,
Like, just, like...
They
CBC
didn't even call him a machinist that builds guns.
A renowned gunsmith, according to the CBC.
Yeah.
Like, let that marinate for a moment. Also, London Free Press, gunsmith's family appeals to mysterious customer who witnessed shooting. So, we've discussed it before. We haven't discussed it recently. Roger Kotenko was shot in his home by Toronto police officers recently. Roger had a firearms business, licensed gunsmith through the Ontario Chief Firearms Officer. His shop was on his property where his home was. He imports, manufactures, modifies, and sells firearms, accessories, components, so on and so forth. For some reason that has yet to have been explained, for people that have not been paying attention to this, he was shot in his home by Toronto police in November. He does not live in or near
No.
Toronto.
No. Or at least not outside of or inside the jurisdiction where Toronto police could have anything to do with it.
The whole way that cop things work, it's not that they don't like, so a lot of the times if there's like a joint thing, they'll go and help each other out and do all the things. But like, he doesn't live in Toronto. He doesn't even live in the greater Toronto area. So unless they were specifically investigating him or his customer that happened to be there, there would be no reason for them to be there. And as a gunsmith that, like a licensed gunsmith, a renowned licensed gunsmith that does a lot of work for police for their personal guns, not their duty guns, it's very unlikely that this particular individual was involved in criminal activity. Because if he was, he'd be kind of dumb to like let cops come into the business on his home property.
So
I would make the argument that Roger Kotenko was a very upstanding individual within the firearms community, and I don't think that of all of his involvement in firearms for decades, I don't think he would be dumb enough to take on work for police officers in his area and also be flagrantly violating laws. So this is down near Port Dover, right?
So yeah, the customer in
southern
that's
Ontario.
A mystery could potentially be a nefarious character that he was meeting with, but that doesn't mean that he was doing work for him or anything.
Right. So this is a fairly well-known firearms enthusiast in Ontario.
But at the same time, right? Like whether they were there for him or not, but me calling a random or a gunsmith that I heard from someone, right? Whether I have my firearms license or not, right? Potentially, this was my first meetup, saying like, "Hey, I've got a bunch of questions or whatever," and this guy was just like, "Yeah, come on over. I like doing in-person meets, this, that, and then I can validate your firearms, whether you brought a gun with you or not, right?" So, like,
well, there's no information about the alleged customer. Info. There's no information about the alleged customer that was with Kotenko when he was shot. There's no explanation by the Toronto police or the SIU as to why Toronto police and a Toronto ambulance were in Port Dover, Ontario, which is not near Toronto, like several hours drive. The local constabulary was not involved, so this was not a joint operation. The OPP was not involved, again, not a joint operation. So, like, there's been no explanation as to why the Toronto police was involved in this, and the officer involved has decided that he will refuse to provide his notes or answer questions to the SIU.
So we probably can't.
Is going on?
So we probably can't make him say anything in case he is of the people that showed up to Canada after Christopher Columbus figured it out.
I take exception to the SIU's position on this. So the SIU spokesperson says that the subject officer has declined to release his notes, as is his legal right. I was not aware that you had the option to not talk to the SIU, which, okay, that's a rule, fine. I knew. Okay. Yeah, just because I didn't know it was a rule, I don't deal with this stuff. Like, that's fine. I can accept that. But why have I never heard about this in all of the other times that we've talked about SIU incidences in Ontario?
Why is this the first guy to claim that right, if you will?
Exactly. That's the issue I have, that this is the first time we ever hear of it. But at the same time, like, I don't disagree with standing up against the big honcho for there are times.
No, like, I do in this case. The SIU is supposed to be an arm's length investigatory force for policing in Ontario.
So
if
I understand
someone in Ontario as a law enforcement officer, there is a certain duty of care that you should have some questions that you need to answer. That
So
is the whole
I have
purpose of the
issues.
SIU.
I have
Oh, but
issues with the SIU potentially being non-biased, but I don't disagree that yes, there is a standard of, hey, you have been vetoed OPP, Ottawa, Toronto, whatever police force in this province of any
I
sort.
mean,
Yes, you
this
should
is
be
how I
held
look
to a
at it, though.
standard
So,
investigations and things. Yeah, I
like,
agree with that. But
if any of us went to court for whatever it is, we are not obligated to provide them any details that may incriminate us, right? We have that
No.
right to not say things, to do this and do that.
No.
I don't think that that's any different per se from this officer. I think he should be afforded the same rights as everybody else. And as the SIU is not a court, they're just a third party that investigates things, that they should absolutely ask for those things. And if he volunteers it, then it helps them. But he should still be able to turn that down. However, that being said, the only people that really would turn that down are people that are guilty. Because, like, if everything is
I
good,
don't know if that's true, because the whole right to self-incrimination piece, I don't know if that's an entirely accurate reflection. But again, I'm having a really hard time with why is Toronto PD involved in
these are
something
the things that, if he handed his notes in, would answer those questions. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's Simcoe County. Why is Toronto Police involved? Which no one has answered to my satisfaction. This has been 2 months now.
Yeah,
And
so
the subject officer is not cooperating with SIU. Like,
so
why did
I mean,
you shoot a dude in his garage?
Yeah.
I don't feel like this is an unreasonable set of questions. What prompted you to shoot an old man in his garage? Because, like, remember, Roger's like 80 years old, right?
Yeah.
It was 80 years old.
So
unless you're like the worst cop ever and have eaten way too many donuts, you could probably beat this guy in a fist fight. So there's no need to shoot him.
See, so that's why the SIU, he's not talking to them. He wasn't allowed to bring his donut into the questioning room.
Maybe that's the case. And I think I lied. Roger was 70 years old when he was apparently murdered by a Toronto police officer.
I mean, the guy didn't have a belt-fed machine gun and 90 restricted weapons.
If this
he
guy
was
had
a legal vetoed firearms gunsmith that did work for maybe not all, but at least a few, as they mentioned in articles previously, that he worked. I won't say modified in this scenario because whatever, but checked out, cleaned, and fixed a bunch of law-abiding
but that's the thing, is like,
as well as police force.
If you live in Southern Ontario, you know this guy, and a lot of people, because Dark Action Customs is a business a lot of people have bought in firearms from over the last. I think he's been in business for like 30 years.
Yeah,
like that's why. Like, I don't see
odd.
If the cop was there for an even halfway legitimate reason, him releasing his notes.
Why was it a Toronto cop in Port Dover? Why was Simcoe OPP not involved? And why is the subject officer not talking to SIU?
Well, yeah, that's the thing. If he was there for an even halfway legitimate reason, like if he was there because he had heard something about the customer that was going to be there at the time, and it was pertinent to something he was investigating, then that legitimizes him being there. And if he's legitimately there for something work-related, then anything else could be plausible. But if he's just like, I'm randomly there for no reason at all, and I shot the guy, like, it just makes him look even worse.
The only piece that I'm concerned about with that is literally like Kotenko's family asking for if there was a customer, that he come forward and identify himself so that their lawyer can talk to him.
But
I'm still not convinced there was a customer present. There was a bunch of Toronto police there. Did they just like let him wander off?
Well, but that's the thing, because like court things and arrests and stuff like that are kind of public record.
This is my point. So there's a bunch of police there. They
So, yeah,
hold
if there's a
Kotenko's
witness,
wife at gunpoint. They point
Yeah.
assault rifles, actual assault rifles at her.
yeah,
They've just
and this
shot
guy somehow
Kotenko,
skates off
and like
without like,
the alleged customer just wandered away and nobody stopped him.
yeah, he's not being questioned. He's not even being held so that he doesn't say anything to incriminate the officer or like or support the officer. Like just
Well,
like Kaiser Soze and just like fucking like puff of smoke.
the good
Spanish.
news is, if my day job doesn't work out, I can get a job teaching criminology at Trent University. Because Professor Lemang there says that this could raise questions about police use of force, accountability, and lead to public skepticism. No shit, I get drunk on the internet Monday nights and complain about the government. I figured that out.
Yeah, but so that all depends, right? Like, if you're white, or sorry, if you're more of a descendant from someone that came from the original country where Christopher Columbus found
I am
Canada.
not Spanish, sir. I am not Spanish.
Yeah, nor does he play one on
I
the movie.
said
Also
more
putting that on
likely.
the options for
I'm not Spanish, sir. But if you're more likely to follow that pigmentation, right? I mean, there'd probably be, yeah, I have my issues with everything about this fucking case.
There's a
Why the
there's
fuck
a
were they
lot
there?
about this.
That's all I want to know. Why were you there?
9 weeks. 9 weeks. I just want answers from Toronto police. What were they doing? Show us the search warrant. Show us the search warrant. It's not that big of a deal. Just publish the search warrant.
And
there
was lots of, yeah, there was lots of news, the day it happened. And like, there's been barely
I feel like this is one of those things that like, we have like 30 million Canadians. We have like a couple million gun owners. We have like 100,000, a quarter million gun owners in Ontario. We have like a couple of people that care about like this one gunsmith from Simcoe. I feel like it's just like diminishing returns as we go on this list. But like, I feel invested in this case as a guy that's done work for me, as a person who I've referred people to. I feel like I'm somewhat invested in this. I would like to know what actually transpired.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm being unreasonable in asking some of these questions.
No.
No. Chris is pointing out to me that he is better at world history than I am. Columbus was an Italian, and he was financed by the King of Spain. That sounds reasonable. I've been drinking, although not as much as Pierre, but I have been drinking. I am
Spanish,
definitely
Italian.
not Italian.
Yeah, Spanish, Italian, same, but different.
So, you racist bastard, assuming what country he came from.
They're all some sort of dark-skinned European.
Define
Definitely
dark.
not Italian.
Sorry, never mind. We're done. Yeah, but yeah, there's something fishy about it that
I
was,
just
like,
want some straightforward
all over
answers,
the
man,
news.
and I don't think any like. Why
Well,
was it Toronto Police? Why were they in Simcoe? Why was the OPP not involved? Where's the search warrant? And why is the officer not talking to SIU? Like, this is
we're
none
never
of
gonna
this
find
is
out.
breaking stuff.
This has been memory
Maybe
hole. Like, once
Well,
the family
I'm
has
gonna
now
keep
asked
beating
about,
on it. I'm gonna keep beating on it every other week until we get some updates. Because like, as long as it doesn't keep happening, I'm gonna keep mentioning it so it doesn't get memory hold. So like, sorry guys, everybody's listening to the show. You're gonna get to listen to me ask my same couple of questions,
100%.
however long this takes. Because it,
Did you assume one guy had a really shitty fucking, what's the word I'm looking for? The person that gives information to police, a snitch, I guess you could say, right? Like someone somewhere somehow got really bad intel about potentially something. They
who knows, man?
they screwed up the name of the road or whatever. But whatever it is, right? Like, I mean,
This
should be some
customer
point.
that was there could very well have been a shady character.
Right.
We don't know
Well,
because they don't know who he is, where he is, or what he was doing there, or anything. There's no,
whether it was customer or the gunsmith itself, right? Like at
I really
some
doubt
point,
he had
right?
anything like the gunsmith himself had anything shady going on, because again, like 30
True.
plus years in business and dealing
Yeah.
with the local police and the provincial police and everything else, like if somebody was involved in something shady with that kind of a business, with those kind of people frequenting his establishment, it would have been found out long ago. So if there is any sort of nefarious connection, my guess is that it has to do with a customer, potentially the customer that was there at the time, or one that had been there recently and they just happened to show up while some other unknown customer was there. And again, like, you don't know, like when someone calls you up and goes, hey, I've got this thing I need you to take a look at, you're like, yeah, come by the shop, right? So he could very well have not known anything about it and just said, come by the shop. These are my business hours, show up at this point in time and we can talk about it then.
Yeah.
But again, without this guy giving his notes, how are we supposed to know anything? And the more he keeps quiet, the more guilty he looks, in my opinion, because if he had even a remotely reasonable excuse for being there, he would have given it by now and said, I was there because like dirtbag A was meeting with him to talk about something and I showed up and I shot the wrong guy or something like. But at least if you're there, then cops make mistakes all the time and can reason away things. And I'm not saying that all cops are garbage, because most of you are good people.
No, but I think in this case we might have a particular officer that is garbage.
This one is. I believe this one is garbage, and without him giving some explanations as to why he was there and what went wrong, and why he shot the old man, it just sounds like a grudge match kind of a thing. Like maybe this guy fixed his gun.
Well, and the other thing, and again, I'd really love to know why Toronto was involved with this and not local OPP, because it's local OPP, not a municipal police force.
Yeah.
Maybe there's something going on. Maybe Toronto police is involved. Maybe there's a firearms task force thing, but it's not like one lone police officer drove several hours to go and execute a search warrant by himself. So if you're one of those cops that has like a questionable coworker, I know you're all on the same team, but like this is one of those times where maybe you should like point out to somebody that like somebody made an error.
Exactly. And I get the whole, I don't want to run into a dangerous situation with guys that I don't trust and don't trust me, because then they don't got my back. But like, if you know that your teammate is dangerous or potentially crooked, do you really want them on your team? Because chances are you might be running into that hail of bullets. And so they're the one responsible.
This is an entirely speculative comment on my part, and it'll be my last little comment on the Kotenko thing for the time being. But I really do wonder if this wasn't a very inexperienced, I'm going to say, officer that was involved and walked in and was like, holy shit, guns! And just
you mean like that time that you got...
I'm not saying it's like that, but I'm just saying that, like, what if this was an inexperienced officer and walked into a gunsmith shop and didn't realize that he was going to a gunsmith shop because he's not, I'm going to say not very experienced. I'm being very generous here.
And maybe
decided to, like, pump 4 rounds into a 70-year-old man because there was a bunch of guns in the room.
Yeah, or maybe he happened to be working on, something for somebody that was prohibited, but he's allowed to because he's a gunsmith, right?
Holding stuff, was it just in the presence of firearms? Was it just like this was a jumping new guy? He walks in
and sees him working on some guy's, some other agency's MP5 or something that's prohibited, but he's allowed to work on it because he's a registered gunsmith.
I don't even know if it would be anything that exciting. Literally just like...
No, but you know what I mean? Like,
you saw a bunch of guns and pumped 4 rounds into an old man.
But even if he knew it was a gunsmith, but he walks in and sees something that he's not expecting, right? Like, just like, holy shit, that's a machine gun.
I really wonder about the circumstances of what happened here, and not talking to SIU doesn't make me feel better about it.
No, this guy needs to spill the beans, man. Like, just come clean, say why you were there, why you were investigating him or somebody else. And
well, I think TPS could do that.
Unfortunately,
I don't think the subject officer has to.
Well, exactly. If he wasn't there alone, why are the other people?
Well, that's what I mean. Like, I think TPS literally could just publish the search warrant and like
Yeah.
explain some things here. I don't think they're going to. I think we're gonna have to wait till this goes to trial. I think the lawyers are gonna make a lot of money on this, and we're not
Yeah.
gonna get a lot of actual answers out of it.
Yeah.
But
Just because
anyway,
they're so ready to
Right,
hang people out to
'cause-
dry when it comes to other things, but why are they not releasing the search warrant on this?
well,
Because even
I
if
have a
the
lot of
guy is
questions.
a 20-year veteran for whatever police force, right? If that guy has never been in a situation where he can potentially have to unholster his firearm, right? Even though he's a veteran police officer, let's say 20 years, 5 years, 10 years on the job, right? If he's never had to take that gun out of his holster, and this is the moment where he's like, oh my God, it's happening, this, that, where a potential, like someone moving too fast or an action of some sort, where this guy decided to fucking bang 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 and someone's dead, right? Answers need to be announced to the public, not even
I want some
mean,
answers.
more important than anything, to the family of that person, more than you and me just being curious curious bystanders, I guess we could say. But answers need to be announced for this, and at the absolute least, the family and relatives of the person, they need answers, because this sounds just weird and sketchy all at the same time.
Super sketchy. Book club.
Okay.
Last Monday of the month, as everyone knows, we do book club. We've been doing book club for
Yes.
almost 2 years now. We've been podcasting for a while, but we've been doing book club
I know.
for
I
almost
looked
2
into.
years now.
I actually looked into the date for that, and I was like, man, we have been doing this for a long time.
We've done a couple of podcasts,
Yeah.
but the last Monday of the month is book club, because it means that's a week I don't have to read the news. Well, at least that I don't have to put the news on the podcast and we can talk about something else. I still have to make my notes, because otherwise, what would I do with all of the exciting gun news that I've been pulling together for the last 2 or 3 weeks?
We still read them because we're committed to this.
December Book Club, The Small Unit Leader's Guide to Counterinsurgency, the official United States Marine Corps manual from the United States Marine Corps. I feel like we should say Marine Corps at least one more time.
Something crayons.
Something crayons.
But if you take the R out, isn't it Maine?
Yes.
Yeah. Uncle Sam's Misguided Children.
Yeah.
The January book will be the True North Tradecraft Disaster Preparedness Guide, a primer on urban and suburban disaster preparedness. That's from our friend Boris, who was on the show recently. We're going to talk about Boris's book.
Yes.
If you want to get that book, you could buy it directly from True North Tradecraft, and you can buy other stuff from them, log packs and things.
Yeah, some pretty cool shit. I could probably blow a few $100 on that website.
Yeah, I could spend some
Not
money
even
at
including
Boris's
the book.
shop.
I resemble that remark.
You resemble or resent?
Resemble.
Yes.
Carry on as you were.
We also have a Discord if you want to come and hang out and talk about the show or other things. We have a bunch of, I don't know what they're called in Discord, channels. We have a bunch of different like sub Discords categories. I'm not
like
sure.
Reddit, but not.
Other
I'm
Andrew takes care of the Discord.
positive.
I occasionally like things and comment. Like, share, and subscribe. That's not what I do.
Yeah, that too.
No.
Those
So
things.
I'm 90% positive, unless they're talking about 6 o'clock till Tuesday morning, you can probably catch me without a bunch of alcohol in me. In most cases.
Yeah, get on the
there.
Discord. Come hang out with everybody. It's a good time because we don't have other social media. Because I've been banned from all of the rest of the mainstream social media, and I'm okay with that. Pierre, where can everybody find you since you're now in the anti-clockwise position?
Yes, I am. You can find 25% of me on anything socialist media, off the wall customizing, Facebook, Instagram, Clapper, and whatever else is out there, or email off the wall
What the
customizing.
shit is Clapper?
I don't know, but I hear
So
there's a shot that you can get to clear that up.
Yeah, you go see your doctor 2 weeks later. You can keep doing what you're doing.
Clapper?
Good to go. Yeah.
Or off the wall customizing at gmail.com. You'll get me or anything socialist media. You'll get my wife, but whatever she
Be
says,
heard,
I'm
be
good with. And
seen,
if you don't
be
like it,
valued. What the hell is
Yeah,
this?
no, that not doing that. That sounds like the socialist of medias.
I got a
Oh.
feeling I gotta spread my cheeks and lift my sack.
Yeah, remind me in the after show. I've got a funny story about clapping and socialism for you from Gulag Archipelago.
This is
Yeah, so it's apparently sort of similar to TikTok, which is another thing I don't understand. But send an email, it'll be me or my wife, and whatever she says goes, because we're both doing this. But like anything social media, you're most likely dealing with her. She may call or whatever, but like we do this mutually, me and my wife. So whatever she says, I'm good with. Or if you want to get a hold of me,
so
I don't know, figure it out.
do what Pierre's wife says. Gavin, where can everyone find you?
I mean, the best place to find me, at least for now, because we don't have any courses on the go, is on the gram, Urbix GTA.
Right on. You can find me at ragnaroktactical.ca. Use the discount code Patriot when you check out. You're literally taking money out of my kids' college tuition. Go buy some first aid supplies or some tactical products or accessories or nylon gear or all that good stuff. If you want to get in touch with the show, you should send us your feedback to feedback@CanadianPatriotPodcast.com. I'm thinking in an effort to reduce my reliance on modern technology and social media, I might invest in a fax machine. You could fax me your feedback.
Telegrams. That involves all people, not technology.
What we really need is some more cassette tapes being sent in by Earl.
Man, I could go for a cassette tape right now.
Yeah.
Tell you what.
Yeah. Or if you can train your pigeons to come out to someone's place, I'm okay with handwritten letters.
Yeah, we should really set up a PO box.
I really don't want to have to deal with that.
It would be hilarious.
Okay, but in my like only thing I recommend is we get PO Box 69.
That would be funny. I will make an inquiry.
Yeah. Or if it's a big enough one, 223-556-308. I'll even accept 270, 357.
All right, I will make a list of appropriate calibers and also include 69, and I will find out what a PO box will cost us, because I'm not sure about this whole, like, I was definitely not a fan of Facebook and Instagram. I am even less of a fan of this Clapper business.
Yeah, but I think it would be funny for people to like actually physically mail in anonymous letters.
Doesn't even have to be anonymous. You could include a real return address.
Well, that too, but I just think it would be funny.
You can or you cannot. But let's say we take all this shit away and people's got to write shit and go to the post office.
Dude, I am perfectly fine with that. I have no issue with real physical letters.
What?
Only thing I do, so I have an Instagram, and the only thing I do is find funny shit and send it to like 4 people I know.
That's probably the best thing to do with Instagram.
Yeah.
I have to apologize to Rod Giltaca. We couldn't get Rod on the show this week to talk about the changes to the criminal code or how gangsters are spending their money for CRB. We'll try to get Rod on next week. We have an all BC topic show scheduled, so that should be right up his Paisley shirt alley. For all of our listeners out there in For all of our listeners out there in podcast land, I'd like to remind you that you are the true north.